Before we begin, I'm going to ask everyone to please turn off electronic devices so we'll have the proper decorum and dignity during the service. We're going to start with a parak of Tehillim. Parak of Gimel. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo echzor, binos deshayar bitzeni amei menukos yina aleini, nafshi yishovev yankeni b'maglei tzedek leman shimo, gam ki elek b'geitz hamaves, lo yirara ki ato imadi, shiftacho mishantecha heima yenachamuni, tarok lefonai shulchan neget tzorirai, tishantav Hashem en roshi kosi rivaya, Ach tov v'chesed yedefuni kol yemei chayai, v'shavti veis Adonai liorech yomim. Song of David, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not lack. God makes me lie down in lush pastures. God leads me beside tranquil waters. God restores my soul and guides me in righteous path for God's name's sake. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your scepter and staff, they comfort me. Prepare a table before me in full view of my adversaries. You've anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord for length of days. We gather today to pay our final respects to Sandra Mandel, Suri Basar of Yitzchak Yosef. Sadly, this is the loss of another survivor in our midst, another link in contact to a very different world. It is the loss of the woman known as Bubby, not just to her grandchildren and great-grandchildren, but really to the entire community. There are many, many speakers, so many family members who wanted to share some thoughts. So I'm just going to note some quick themes of her amazing life and let others fill in the important details. Born in Pasha, Romania in 1924, her family moved to Barad when she was 8, where her father served as the Rav, the Moel, and the Shochet. There she was raised and trained to care for everyone, as her family had the oven where they warmed food for the whole village, and where they baked the community's matzos. Even years later, when she met with the group at Europa, she was still the expert in baking matzos that she had learned in her youth. Her childhood was, of course, cut short when she was taken to Auschwitz. She incredibly survived working in the munitions factory, but her immediate family was killed. Unlike many survivors, she was actually very comfortable describing her time in the concentration camps. She often said she had not fully realized what was happening, which allowed her to go on. Perhaps more deeply, it was her trusting nature. She was someone who always saw the best in everyone. Again, many family members will explain in full detail. And made everyone she interacted with feel special, that perhaps allowed her and prevented her from assuming the worst. After the war, she married her uncle, who was only 6 years older than her. As many survivors, there was a desire to come to that which was familiar, that which reminded you of home. They were married in Prague, were smuggled to Italy, and then before coming to Cleveland. Soon afterwards, the couple moved to New Philadelphia and then Worcester, places in Ohio, where he was the rabbi and she was the Rebbitzin par excellence. As always, consistent with her characteristics, consistent with her nature, she always wanted to help people, stiller height, in a quiet way, with quiet dignity. Her 3 daughters became 4. She taught Sunday school and she fed the world. After her husband died 42 years ago, she returned to Cleveland and maintained the same role. Suri was who she was in all circumstances. She cooked for everyone at Taylor Road Synagogue, took more people into her home, fed so many people that she was a one-woman soup kitchen. She raised everyone. She raised her children. She raised her grandchildren. She raised her, thank God, great-grandchildren. She nurtured them all, and made all of them feel loved and special. Put simply, she touched people's lives. Though she came from a very distinguished lineage, a descendant of Oppenheim, she could trace her roots back to Rashi, going all the way back to King David, to David HaMelech. She lived a life of simplicity. She just wanted to make those around her happy, which matched her own happy and friendly personality. The community's Bubby's impact was wide and deep. When I was informed Shabbos morning of her passing and announced it to the shul, you could feel, the whole Green Road Synagogue community felt, a real void, a real loss, a woman who is such an integral part of all of our lives, has now passed. Yehi Zichra Baruch. May her memory be a blessing. May the lesson that she had of really caring for everyone in such a beautiful way, without any desire for attention, it's a lesson that her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren have absorbed and will exhibit for many years to come. As mentioned, there are a number of individuals that would like to speak. We'll first call up Rav Feinstein, who had a relationship with her, to share a few words.
I appreciate this great honor to be up here. I'm a relative newcomer in the many decades of her life. And that, in a profound way, what I'll remember is just sitting at the house next to her on the couch. And she would hold your hand and massage your hand and look at you with these very big, sweet eyes. And to me, it seemed interesting because she had grandchildren. I wasn't one of them. I was the rabbi visiting her. But this was her protocol for everybody. You got the love and you got the sweetness of this person. What always amazed me about her was that we as people, we have a body and we have a soul. And we think of our soul as being something very elevated, and our body as something that's a work in progress. But when you meet a great person, you see that the body is motivated by the soul. The soul doesn't need to remind the body anymore of what it's supposed to do. It just does it automatically. And I think in my life, there's no better example of what an automatic body is than her. This body knew how to move, how to get up, how to do from morning to night without stopping. You knew about the Shabbos, you knew about love and caring for other people. And to me that was so amazing, that her soul was so bright that it touched her body in the most amazing way. And even when her mind wasn't the same, and even when she would forget things, the main things she did not forget. And also I look in the audience and I see a lot of great people. I would call this room, forgive me for lack of a better term, some of the best people in Cleveland. I look in the room and I see people who are extremely caring, and people who work with all sorts of people in all sorts of places. And it's not an accident that the trunk of these people is this lovely lady here. As spoken about before, her kindness and caring for all types of people in all circumstances are the reason why you people are the way you are. Such wonderful people, and we give her great thanks. Just lastly, we spoke about her being a survivor. But for the caregivers at Montefiore, I think that she was an amazing type of survivor, because she did speak about who she was, and she left an amazing legacy. And for us, who only knew her in the last few months of her life, we saw a lady who was very happy and who was very strong. But then when we went back in time and we read what she had written, her multi-page manuscript that she had written to describe what she had gone through in the war, it was truly, truly devastating what she had seen and what she had gone through. And how could a human being be so happy and strong? And that's what all the staff said. All the staff cried when they saw her memories, but they couldn't understand how you could be so happy and amazing at the same time. And that's who she was. She took the most awful experiences in life and made it into a reason for being good and caring and loving of all people. So her lovely daughter Regina and her extended family, her daughters, her sons-in-law, her grandchildren, I wish you my condolences and comfort. And the greatest comfort comes from a life being fully lived, and she did that to the utmost. Thank you.
I'd like to call up Shlomo Stern to say a few words.
I'm the former shamus of Taylor Road Synagogue. One of my wife's earliest childhood memories, she tells me, is playing with Baila and Rivka Mandel at their house on Blanche. A house with a distinctive European flavor, always filled with relatives and extended family, and presided over by the lovely, gracious, and gentle matriarch, Sandra, a.k.a. Suri. The family was associated with Taylor Road Synagogue forever, and their lives were intertwined with the Engelberg family and with the shul throughout the years. They left Cleveland for a period of time, when Rabbi Mandel took positions outside of Cleveland, and then Sandra returned as a widow and reconnected with the shul and raised a whole new generation here. Sandra, petite, soft-spoken, modest, was a powerhouse of persistence, optimism, devotion to family and synagogue, a person who always cared for others. She oozed calm. She was always cheerful and smiling. She was utterly non-judgmental, always helpful, always eager to reassure, and never, ever negative. Her dedication to TRS should be the stuff of legends, serving in numerous capacities, coming early on Sunday morning for years to help cook and serve the breakfasts. I would be utterly remiss if I didn't mention that she came regularly to Davon. She never missed a Shabbos. It is no wonder that the Seltzer boys, now men, though I still think of them as kids, old patterns of relating persist, were regular shulgoers from a very young age, involved in all aspects of the davening, and remain the same to this day, pillars of their respective shuls and communities. Sandra was a totally giving person, the epitome of chesed. People were always staying with her, eating at her table, benefiting from her numerous kindnesses. She was always taking care of someone. Her door was always open, and her empathetic, sympathetic heart was always open. De leis dinin diskifin, there were no harsh judgments. There were no judgments of any kind. But her greatest love was for her family. Charity doesn't end at home, but it begins at home. Chazal teach shloisha shutofim. There are 3 partners in raising a child: father, mother, and God. For this family, we must add a 4th, Bobby Suri. She was a grandma's grandma. Her grandchildren were the apple of her eye. I am a grandpa, Kenina Hore, and I know to the very depths of my soul how important grandparents are. She showered her grandchildren with wisdom, guidance, presence, P-R-E-S-E-N-C-E, maybe presence too, P-R-E-S-E-N-T-S, and participation in every moment of their lives. And the results are on display. They have developed into the beautiful people that they are. God graced her with a long life, a life of naches, abiding joy in her wonderful family of Torah true Jews committed to her values and ideals. Beyond the personal loss, Sandra's Petira leaves us bereft of yet another member of that holy generation who absorbed the richness of pre-war Jewish life in Europe, in her case Hungary, survived the fires of the Holocaust, and escaped to these shores to rebuild their lives. I regret that perhaps I did not appreciate her enough. We are here today to express our gratitude for what she and so many other members of her generation contributed to our lives and to the Jewish people. Tehei nafsho tzururo b'tzroil hachayim. May her soul be bound up in the bundle of life, the bond of life, the bond of eternal life. Ad bias goyel tzedek.
As was noted, she's particularly close to her grandchildren. We'll now hear from a number of them, starting with Yehuda.
Dear Bubby Suri, thank you. You have made such an important impact in all of our lives. Thank you for your love, for all the time you've invested in us, and for being you. Thank you for rebuilding after the war, for lifting yourself out of the ashes, and for pulling through some really dark times. And despite it all, you had a peacefulness about you that has inspired us all. You have so much to be proud of in what was truly an incredible life. I find it amazing that you not only raised my mom, who is absolutely incredible in so many similar ways, but that you also helped raise me and even my children. What an amazing bracha. I remember once as a child climbing a tree in the back of your house on Cedar Road and refusing to come down. In the end, all it really took was a fresh batch of your cookies and a smile to break through my stubbornness. That was your way. But there was way more to you than cookies. You had such a beautiful neshama. It was plain for all to see. You had a kindness and a sensitivity that was so inspiring. I always tell my kids that you can't control what life throws at you, but you can control how you react to it. Bobby, you had some unimaginable things thrown at you, yet you reacted with love and a gracefulness that's hard to comprehend. This special quality about you has undoubtedly affected every person you've ever met. While I feel so much sorrow at your passing, I feel so fortunate to have spent so much time with you over the years, and how much better of a person I am for it. I owe so much to you and feel such a tremendous sense of gratitude and hakarat hatov for your love and gentle demeanor, for your intense personal investment in all of us, and for your contagious sense of warm wisdom and calm. For all this and more, I would like to say one last, truly heartfelt thank you. We will cherish your memory forever.
Peretz.
In Parshat Tzav, on the words, Vesh HaMizbeach Tukad Bo, the rabbis say from here that we need to take the light of Torah and spread it into the world. Bubby brought this light into the world. Just as a torch in the darkness lights up everything around it, so too my Bubby, throughout her entire life, lit up the world around her with the light of Judaism and kindness. Bubby grew up in Barad, a very small town in Romania. Bubby's family came to this small town and transformed that town by creating a Jewish presence there. Her father was the rabbi of that town, and with her family, spread the light of Judaism and kindness. I will relate one of those stories, how her family would ensure that the entire town had matzahs for Pesach. She told me about how her grandfather would section off wheat in the fields to prepare the special wheat needed for matzah. And right before Pesach, her family set up matzah baking in their house so that every family in the village would have their 3 shmura matzahs for their Seder. Years later, even when my Bubby was forced into the worst darkness of the Holocaust, my Bubby was still able to spread the light. From Auschwitz, she was transferred to work in a factory, from early morning until late in the evening, drying glasses in a big stove, feet swollen and burns in her dress. Many of the girls in the group got sick and could not digest the food that they were fed. My Bubby would sneak in bread and potatoes to cook them in the ovens, trembling. Maybe the smell would give away her secret. Clara, her friend, once warned her, "You are crazy. Why do you do such a thing? You will be killed." But she said she knew how much better the cooked food was for those who were ill. And there she became known as Potato Sandra. A few weeks ago, my family visited New Philadelphia, Ohio. It is a small town. And there too, just like growing up, she went with Zaidi Peretz to this small town and spread the light, creating a Jewish presence there. I was able to find countless newspaper articles of the nursery and educational classes my Bubby ran, and the sisterhood events she ran. In one excerpt, which I thought summed it up, was on Saturday, March 28, 1964. Someone from the local newspaper visited their house to learn about Pesach. I quote the following: "An hour spent with the Mandels gives a guest the feeling that this couple has found the true meaning of happiness. After listening to them for a while, one realizes that this happiness lies in their love of God, the close-knit family group, and the respect for fellow man." And again, when she moved to Worcester, Ohio, where Zaidi Peretz was the rabbi of the shul, and again, there also was a small town. And again, she and her family transformed the place, bringing that Jewish presence. Visiting Knesset Israel, my mom described how they set up classrooms in the downstairs social hall to teach religious studies, and how my Bubby was a major contributor to the community around her. After the passing of Zaidi Peretz, who I am named after, she moved to Cleveland. From my perspective, I had the honor of experiencing that light she provided, as she was in my house almost every day when I was growing up. She was an integral part of my life. She was always there, preparing food, taking care of things in the house, or taking care of us. She was the ultimate good. Always there to talk to us, always upbeat, always kind, always excited to hear about what we were doing, always helping other people. Never heard a bad word or negative about anything. In the family, she was known for her sewing, the games with the kids, and her cookies. Being around her just made you feel better. Last night, we all sat down to discuss what Bubby meant to us. I can't mention all of this now, but what's clear is that Bubby raised all of us, 3 generations, and lit up all of our lives. I will mention one. I know that many of us are familiar with Bubby's chocolate chip cookies, but I learned a secret about those cookies that I'm not sure everyone knows. Did you know? Bubby can't eat those cookies. The recipe commonly used chopped nuts that she can't eat herself. Yes, that means her intention in making all those cookies all those years were only to give to all of us, never about herself. And of course, in Cleveland, there too, she was also involved in the shul, of course. Even after years later, when the shul had less members, Bubby was still there doing all the work for those Sunday morning brunches. Everyone that has ever met her has experienced that light that helps you get better, that helps you better see your way through life, but it goes beyond. I found an article written by her husband, Rabbi Paul Mandel, Zaidi Peretz, on the topic of immortality. He wrote the following: "Man is endowed with a special something extra that cannot be put into categories or be defined. That something extra is actually what makes man man. Without it, man is nothing. That is the soul. We believe that the soul in man, which cannot be seen, touched, or felt, is immortal, that lives on even after our bodies are no more. He brings an example from William James. Light enters through glass, which being transparent introduces the light. Yet light is not dead when the white window glass is broken, nor are the rays lost. They pursue their course somewhere else through another medium. I want to end with a final message for all of us. A little later in the same Torah portion in Tzav, Borish HaMizbeach tukad bo lo sichbeh. And on the fire altar that burns, you shall not let it go out. All those gathered here who experienced Bubby, the light of Torah and kindness, we all have a responsibility to carry on that light through our lives and make sure to not let it ever be extinguished.
Paris check.
Anybody who knew Bubby Suri would always talk about how she had this extreme optimism about everything. When I think of her, I just picture her with a smiling face, just content with everything. I'd like to take a brief moment to talk about why that struck me as extraordinary. So, Bubby was always a strong influence in my life, but the older I got, the more interested I became in understanding Bubby's past. I would spend hours listening to her tell stories about her life growing up in the small town of Barod, Romania. I got to hear all of the 75-year-old gossip, which surprisingly is still quite riveting today. About 6 years ago, by some miracle, a small group of our family managed to take Bubby back to Romania. With Bubby as our guide, we visited her hometown as well as Auschwitz-Birkenau, where she spent quite some time during the war. This trip for me was transformative. I got to put a real image to all those stories that she had told me all those years. But more importantly, until then I did not truly understand what Bubby had lost at the tender age of 19, even younger. She lost everything and everybody she loved. So now, here was the part that did not add up for me. Where did that never-ending smile come from? How could somebody who had suffered so much be so happy? On that trip, I realized that Bubby was not optimistic because she led a charmed life or because she'd forgotten the details of the losses she'd suffered. On the contrary, she had an amazing memory and was able to recount almost everything that happened in her childhood and throughout the war. And yet, Bubby maintained this joyous outlook on life despite the suffering she'd experienced. How was that possible? Bubby knew something deep down that most of us have trouble grasping, that everything in life is a gift from Hashem, especially life itself. When bad things happen, even horrible things, you move forward, you start again, and you make the best of it. And Bubby did make the best of it. I can't imagine anyone who lived as rich a life as she did. She took joy in everything. She devoted her life to being helpful to everybody, not just her family. She lived to give, and it only made her joy multiply. Standing with Bubby in one of the barracks in Birkenau, I did not feel sadness. I felt a great sense of pride and fulfillment, because that's what was emanating from Bubby. There, in that place, they tried to destroy her, but she rebounded so strongly that she could return with her children and grandchildren. And she was able to display that beautiful smile because she truly believed in the good in life. When we finished our tour at Auschwitz-Birkenau, our guide told Bubby that she'd met many, many survivors over the years, but there was something very unique about Bubby, her strong, optimistic attitude to life. And look at you. You won your life, our guide said to us. Look at your family around you who are in love with you. And that's because of the kind of person that you are. I was struck by what the guide had said because it could not have been more true. Bubby was so incredibly unique in this way, so much so that It was noticeable to someone who knew her for all of 45 minutes. Thank you, Bobby, for giving me the gift of this most important life lesson. I will treasure it in your memory.
Alec?
To my Aunt Barbara, my Aunt Nanny, Aunt Reggie, to my mother Sally, to your husbands, to your children, your children's children, extended family, friends, and everyone in the community whose lives were touched by my grandmother, I'd like to wish you all my sincerest condolences. We lost a truly, truly remarkable person. I had the great privilege of growing up with Bubby for the majority of my childhood. And there's one story that I'd like to tell that I think really captures the essence of what an amazing person she really was. When I was young, I was afraid of the dark. Very afraid of the dark, to the point that I could not sleep alone. To console me, Bubby would allow me to sleep with her in a mat on the edge of her bed. So I got to spend a lot of time knowing Bubby. Some of you may remember that Bubby used to talk in her sleep. I see some smirks over there, you know. And maybe if you were passing by, you might have heard something every now and then. But I slept in the same room with her for years, so I didn't just hear what she said, I listened to what she said. And what she said, and what she would say in her sleep, were some of the most horrible and horrendous things that you could imagine. You see, my Bubby relived her memories of the Holocaust pretty much every single night. And I'm not going to repeat the things that I've heard, but I can tell you that not only was it remarkable how happy and excited she was waking up each morning, but she was excited to go to sleep. I never understood it, because I heard the screams and I heard the cries every night. And every night she was excited to go to bed. Come on, Alec, wash your face, brush your teeth, we're going to bed. Reflecting back on it now, I think the most amazing part of it all is that she was willing to relive those memories every single night if it was to have the energy to help us all every single day, to give herself to us every single day, her time, her resources, and yes, her food. Bubby was the strongest person I've ever known, and I'm sure that's the same for a lot of us here. A strong personality, a strong will, a strong woman. I'll conclude with this. I spent 14 years living under the same roof as Bubby. And I think her greatest gift to us all is that she was able to see the greatness in all of us. Did not matter your race, your age, the decisions you made in the past, the mistakes that we may all live with, insecurities, flaws, imperfections, did not matter. She could see all of our unique combinations of talents, and she wanted us to put it to good use. And I think it would be a great service to her memory if we looked at ourselves and we looked at everyone else the same way that Bubby looked and treated us all. And I miss you.
For our last hesped, for our last eulogy, her grandson in Israel, Yitzhak Seltzer, has prepared a video presentation.
This is such a difficult eulogy. My Bubby was such a special person, so full of life. We all felt she would live forever. Well, in the Megillah, perhaps one of the last mitzvahs we all did before Bubby's passing, we read about how when Haman was choosing the date for the annihilation of the Jews, he was very excited when it came out on Adar, because that was the month in which Moshe Rabbeinu passed away. The question is asked is, why does it make the whole month into a bad month? Yahrzeit is usually just one day. I mean, every month, probably some great person passed away. And the answer is that the passing of Moshe not only was his own passing, but was the end of an era. End of a concept, the idea of all the things that he taught Am Yisrael, that nobody after him could come even close. Bobby's passing, for us, is the end of an era. Last one of our grandparents to pass away. And not just the end of an era. Her personality, impossible to duplicate. She was just so wonderful. She was so kind and so giving without any thought, without any judgment. She loved everyone. Everyone knows she wasn't just our Bubby. She was the community's Bubby. And we never felt bad about it. We all felt good when, that was our Bubby. She knew how to make everybody else feel that they were special in her eyes. And Bubby, she took her turn raising us all. As each of our parents had trouble or didn't have the time when they were working to watch over us, she was watching us, the Camp Bubby, and not just because she was the one with time. She also had incredible patience, telling a story, keeping up with some of the most wild and obnoxious kids in the universe. And yet she always was smiley and happy. I don't ever remember hearing her complain. Well, one time she did yell at me. That was right after I came back from my first couple years in yeshiva. And I was feeling Mr. Know-It-All, and I'm the big tzaddik, and I have more knowledge of halacha than the people around me. And I was telling people what to do in a very condescending manner. And Bubby took me aside, and she said, "I want you to know that you're not the only rabbi in the family." And she was referring to herself, as she was the rabbi in the family. And when I think about it, she was. She taught me so much. That one moment was telling me that if you're learning halachot and you're getting closer to God, is in a manner that makes other people feel uncomfortable, it's condescending and pushes people away, then you're not doing it the right way. Bubby made a big change in me. I went back to yeshiva, and a few years later I came back on shlichut. I don't know if anybody could tell, I was a different man. Trying to learn and teach Torah in a way that made sense, the way that went in unison with people and didn't make people feel uncomfortable. This was the life that Bubby lived. Bubby lived a pure Eishes Chayil life. Torah in the most comfortable fashion. Everybody was proud and happy to see it shining in her face. She was a Talmidah Chachama. We know she was a daughter of a Talmud Chacham. She was the wife of a Talmud Chacham. We're taught that an Eishes Talmud Chacham, Kechaver Dami, has just as great as the Talmud Chacham themselves. We're taught that Gadol Shimusho Minimudo, you learn more for being around Talmidei Chachamim than actually what they taught. And she was around Talmidei Chachamim. But she also was her own Talmidah Chachama. She also was the own personality that taught us so much by just watching her. Watching how she received other people, watching how she judged other people, watching how she was always there to volunteer for everything and never complained about work too hard, just kept on doing it, always looking for something that she could do, that she could help, that she could be involved of. I even remember even the past couple of years, every time I would visit in Cleveland, every time you come in, what can I make you? What can I get you? What can I do this? Like, wait a second, Bobby, I'm here to visit you. I'm here to help you. I remember when my parents would go out of town and leave us alone with Bubby, and everything was done quick, fast. That was Bubby. Bubby didn't waste a moment of her life. Had so much life there, and she had wisdom. She had a wisdom way beyond. We're taught, that there's like a tzaddik, kind of like Moshe Rabbeinu in his generation. We're a special shama that can include, understand, and connect to every Jewish person. So she had a very special neshama, and she was way beyond her generation. When you hear her tell the story of the Holocaust, she tells it with excitement, as an understanding of what she's been through. I remember a story last year I went to Poland, where she tells of at the end of the war, where the German soldiers were captured, and they wanted to disgrace them in front of the Jewish soldiers in order to give them some sort of pleasure. And Bubby said, I didn't enjoy that. I saw children who were stuck in a situation just like me. Can you imagine that? In that situation, such as the Holocaust, to be able to arrive above that, to see the humanity even in the people who were imprisoning you? But that was Bubby. Bubby saw humanity. She was full of humanity. I remember one time sitting around a house about 20 years ago, when my Bubby was talking with my grandmother and my grandfather, Olam Shalom, and they were all saying how we don't have to tell people our age. Now everybody has to know how old we are. I always tell people something not exact. And Bubby chimed in and says, what are you talking about? I'm 74 and I'm proud of it. Yes, she was proud of the years. And she had probably the most difficult life out of all of us. Yet she still had that pride of life. Well, the response in the Megillah to Haman's thoughts that Moshe Rabbeinu's death would then be a beginning of a horrible time is refuted the fact that Moshe's death is also the day of his birth. Moshe wasn't the end of an era. He was the beginning of an era. He gave birth to something that continued far, far more that we are still learning today. I believe that what Bubby has done in her life was not just wonderful, wonderful beyond her era, but also something that each one of us are doing in our own lives. I was zocha to a very important mitzvah this last summer. I gave a kidney. And a lot of people look at you crazy. What were you thinking? And the truth is, I don't feel that way. I feel, okay, somebody needed it, so I gave it. Where'd you get that from? Well, when I think about it, I got that from Bubby. This undying, unwilling to give whatever to whoever needed. A Jew in need was your own son, was your own brother, was your own family. And I just hope that we could continue the charge that Bubby has brought upon our lives, to continue living what she has given to us and to our family, to the world, to the community, and give off this undying love, undying dedication to helping other people, to keeping our traditions in the most sensible way, with a passion for life that can outlast the horrors of this world. And Bezrat Hashem, this way of life is the life that we are hoping that all Jews will adopt. And this will be truly a feeling of the true redemption, of the true feeling of Am Yisrael Yachad, with true love for other people. Yehi Zichra Baruch.
At this point, I'll ask everyone to rise and we'll say the Kamale. I want to call up her grandson Hillel to lead us in the Kamale.
El Malay Rachamim Shochein Bamichromim Hamitzei Menucha Nechona Al Kanfei HaShechina B'malos Kedoshim U'Tahorim Kezohar Harakia Mazhirim Es Nishmas Sarav Basarav Yitzchak Yosef Shalachah Lolamah Bavur Shanachnu Mispalalim Biad Haskaras Nishmasah Bigan Eden Temnuchasah Lachain Ba'arachamim Yastireha b'seiser kenafav liolamim Vitzror chayim es nishmasach Adonai hu nachlaso v'sanuach b'ch shalom amishkavah v'nomar amen.
You may now be seated. We're about to conclude this part of the service. I do want to call up for one moment Suri's son-in-law, Barry Chick, would like to acknowledge the people who cared for her.
On behalf of the family, just want to say a very quick thank you to Drew, Mr. Drew Gross, for all the nice things that he did on behalf of Bubby Suri and for being such a wonderful friend of the entire family. Thank you.
Now concluded this part of the service. The interment will continue at Ridge Road Cemetery. Shiva will be observed at the home of Regina and Barry Chick, 2544 South Green Road, University Heights. There will be minyanim each evening at 7:30, and minyan in the morning at 7:30 as well. The visiting hours are today between 7 and 9, each evening between 7 and 9, mornings 8 to 10, and 12 to 2 in the afternoons. Yizachar Baruch.